Another day, another speedrun, and today we've got Stealth Force War on Terror. A game that might just be one of the worst FPSs ever made, and that's impressive because there are a lot of bad ones. Now, I already knew from the reviews this game was going to be bad, but what really hammered it home was this logo. I knew I'd seen it somewhere before, but I just couldn't place it, so like anyone else I googled it, and sure enough, oh yeah, there it is, nice, brilliant. Yep, an FPS made by the same people who bought you this.
You know, I can't actually believe I'm saying this. It's because the AI aren't programmed to shoot downwards, so if you stay crouched, they can't hit you.
Now, I will say, compared to that absolute monstrosity, this one is very slightly less broken, which granted isn't saying much, but if I had to choose, I'd pick this one. Okay, so what's the best way of describing this game's premise? Well, it's essentially every mid-2000s FPS, that being Special Forces, the Middle East and WMDs. Although in this case, I'm pretty sure they saw those three words, thought damn, that's deep, and then called it a day. Seriously, just pause the video, read the back of the box and you'll see exactly what I mean. But hey, generic or not, I'm just here to see if I can get a world record. So the current record for this game is 7 minutes and 31 seconds, but since I hadn't played it before, I did a full playthrough to get my bearings. Something that didn't take very long, because it only has 5 missions, and they last around an hour and a half. Which might not sound like a lot of time, but it's more than enough to fully appreciate just how terrible this game really is. Firstly, despite having stealth in the name, there is a severe lack of it. And by that I mean it doesn't exist. At no point do you ever use stealth, nor do I think it's even possible. I mean, your guy's kitted out with a shotgun and a grenade launcher, which as far as I'm aware aren't all that quiet. The game never actually makes you be sneaky, and there's literally no downside to going full Rambo. The closest it gets is one mission where you're explicitly told not to alert enemies.
Your mission is to follow the rebels to their meeting with the arms dealer. Do not alert them to your presence.
Only to land seconds later and have every guard know where you are regardless. Also, even if stealth was an option, you'd never actually need it. There's a combined total of 10 enemies in this whole game, and even if there were more, it wouldn't matter, because the AI is, it's not fantastic. These guys get stuck on walls, won't shoot you if you're behind one, or will just stop shooting entirely for no apparent reason. However, it's worth mentioning this isn't a case where they can't hit you. Oh no, they're incredibly persistent. And this might lead you to believe the game is very difficult, considering that you, on the other hand, can't hit shit unless you're 2 feet away. However, to compensate, they've given your character a gargantuan amount of health, to the point where he's essentially... Dying in this game is nearly impossible. The only time it gets slightly risky is when enemies have shotguns, but due to their moronic AI, you can just move out the way and avoid it. That said, don't get too cocky because on the rare occasion you do die, you're treated to the magical experience of being booted straight back to the main menu and doing the mission all over again because there are no checkpoints. Granted, it doesn't take very long to get back to where you were, as you'll see, but still, this game came out in 2005 and it has no checkpoints, or music, and barely any sound effects, and even the quality of the ones it does have are debatable. Also, the cutscenes aren't very good, but I probably didn't need to explain that to you. Anyway, after getting to grips with this absolute masterpiece and learning the layout just enough to not get completely lost, I was finally ready to speedrun it. Now, the strategy here isn't exactly complicated. Shocking, I know. It mainly boils down to avoiding as many enemies as possible, which unsurprisingly is most of them, and doing objectives as fast as you can. However, despite this pacifism, it does actually rely on a weapon, that being your nondescript auto rifle. This is because of the incredibly OP grenade launcher that one-shots everything and is vital for triggering cutscenes to save time. In fact, you can actually ruin a run by using them all too soon, since the game doesn't really give you more of them. And as long as you manage that and grab a health pack on the incredibly rare occasion it goes below 50%, it mostly comes down to knowing the objectives and where to go. Which, of course, the game makes needlessly difficult by throwing in unskippable cutscenes for things that have absolutely nothing to do with the actual mission. Anyway, despite all that, I managed to finish my first run with a pretty underwhelming time of 19 minutes and 56 seconds. Nowhere near the record and not even the top 3. Or only 3 in this case. And after having a look, I realised the problem was I was still stuck in the habit of actually killing enemies, you know, like you're supposed to in an FPS. So I had to purge that ridiculous notion from my brain and start killing only those I needed to, or whoever got in my way. Now this actually helped a lot, and after a few more attempts I got my time down to 1750, then a 1741. Which, believe it or not, actually put me in third, however I ran into an issue. That being, while your character is basically, he's also incredibly slow, because surprise surprise, you can't sprint. Shocking, I know. So I kept getting painfully close to the record, only to fall short every time. However, that all changed when I discovered the game being broken could work to my advantage. See, while you technically can't sprint, the game is so jank that you can. Sort of. By angling the joysticks in a certain way, you can crab walk sideways and get a visible boost in movement speed. And after a run spent avoiding everyone and power walking like a twat the whole time, I finally did it, 17 minutes and 16 seconds, a new world record. However, it wasn't until I went back to check the leaderboards I realised something was wrong. See, I'd been looking at the PS2 record, not the emulator PS2 record. This stood at 1748, not 1731, which means I'd broken the world record several hours beforehand when I thought I got third. Meaning, I kept playing this mess of code for far longer than I really needed to, but hey, the silver lining is I got a better record than I was aiming for, so there's that. So that's the run. Shockingly, I had a lot of fun speedrunning this, despite the fact it's missing, well, every basic feature a game should have. The plan now is to gradually work my way up to longer speedruns. I'm also thinking of streaming soon once I've got everything set up, but I'll get into that later. In the meantime, if there's a game you want to see me speedrun, no matter how cursed, drop it in the comments, like, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.